folks, it's Lorraine Smith here. It's September 2024. Everyone that I know in the climate action space is gearing up to go to New York City for Climate Week. I'm not going. I haven't been there for a few years, but I lived through a lot of Climate Weeks when I lived in New York City. And so a few years back, I prepared a free 5-point Climate Week briefing. I thought I would dust it off for this coming week. In just a few days, folks will be gathering once again, in case you or someone you know would benefit from this voiceover of an article from a couple years back. Here comes the voiceover of the free 5-point Climate Week briefing, tips for the trip to New York City for humans and their friends. This is an invitation to do something useful and joyful in relation to Climate Week, which begins in the coming days in New York City. I compiled this based on years of experience immersed in corporate sustainability while I lived in New York City. If it seems unfairly critical when we go from top to bottom through these 5 points, consider switching the order and coming back to read this from bottom to top. I mean this sincerely, and I also mean it as an indication of just how upside down things really are. Thankfully, we can change this. I used to live 2 blocks north of the United Nations headquarters. Something as simple as crossing the street became a barrier-strewn adventure during the UN Global Assemblies. Things calmed down just a little bit during Climate Week, which came right after UNGA, as people called those assemblies. They calmed down a little bit, but it was still hectic. Logistical headaches aside, I was conveniently located to participate as a professional working in corporate sustainability. As a result, I found myself attending lots of Climate Week meetings and events. People would say to me, "You're so lucky to live in New York City. You must love Climate Week." No, I did not love Climate Week. I did love seeing friends and meeting new people who came to town, but in terms of the essence of the thing itself, realigning our economy in service of life, I found it unhelpful. It felt like a lot of speakers sitting in chairs up front saying things that are already on their organization's websites, with other people in chairs watching them while messaging with friends and colleagues who were in other chairs watching other people at other meetings. There were a lot of side meetings to figure out which were the most important evening events to attend, or which restaurants to make reservations at, with how big a group. And then there was a lot of getting in and out of taxis, showing security badges, etc. Honestly, with such great people around, we could have just enjoyed each other's company for a walk in Central Park and accomplished much more. So now that I'm out of that fray and have had a few years to reflect on those hectic weeks, I have prepared for you a briefing to make the most of Climate Week. It includes a 5-point plan with key messages and more reading if you'd like to dig further. You don't have to be there in person, in fact. This might still help you get something useful from the ordeal from a distance, minus the access to Central Park. Okay, here comes the briefing. 1. Be aware of the uselessness of current climate action. Even though you're participating in a big convergence of companies, UN agencies, NGOs, and more focused on climate action, it's okay to admit that what's passed for exciting news in our field for some time is now largely ineffective or worse, deceptive, because it's still playing out within the source of the problem, extractive, financially driven growth. I've written about this before in a piece I link here called "Why I Wish I'd Followed My Instincts as a Climate Denier," coming clean on what I really think about corporate climate action. The key message is as follows. The goals don't matter. The GHG emission tallies don't matter. The number of climate initiatives a company has signed on to doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is if we change what created the conditions to screw up the climate in the first place. If we aren't changing the underlying conditions of endless financial growth while overriding the needs of the world's human and non-human majority, consider leaving for a walk in Central Park, as it will surely be more productive. 2. Remember, you are not crazy, but the system you are in is. It's easy to get caught up in the frenzy of events, trying to hear the big announcements and share space with the big names. But as you go along, you might wonder, wait, is there anything actually changing here? Am I contributing? The answer might be yes, but more often than not, it's no, as it's nested within the broken machine itself. There are very real things you can do, but most of them are not encouraged by bureaucratic high-security meetings scheduled during Climate Week in New York City. I also wrote more about that in a piece linked here called 3 Ways You Can Stop Corporate Climate Insanity. But the key message is, know that you are not crazy to question what's happening around you. What's crazy is the economic system into which we've been shoehorned, which is threatening all life on Earth. Happily, Central Park is fairly easy to access on foot from most of the places the meetings are usually held. This can help with stepping away to sense check and remember where you are in the matrix. See bonus round below for more on the matrix. 3. Follow the money where it's useful. We don't need more signatories of more initiatives. Rather, we need those entities who already know what to do, most of which are not human, to be given the space and freedom to heal and to thrive. Then, those of us born and bred into brokenness can learn and follow. Any money being earmarked needs to go that way. I wrote up a $1 trillion interspecies budget a little while ago. I linked to the budget and a piece on that. The key message in that is, the trail towards industrial healing is marked by unprecedented amounts of context-based, locally steered ecosystem restoration, and by a reckoning with the roots of the systemic harm that brought us here. There is a part of Central Park called the North Woods that can offer perspective on this. It takes longer to get to, but it's well worth it. 4. Tell decision makers data-driven details about the truth. Be frank and specific when in dialogue with decision makers. We need to stop tiptoeing and treating wealthy senior people like VIPs when they are responsible for much damage. Even if they are doing lots of so-called great stuff, we need to be crystal clear about the overall purpose of their organizations compared to what they actually do to make and spend money. Here's an example you can draw on in a letter that I wrote, linked here, called Dear Mr. Hagedorn, You Killed My Compost Worms. The key message in this is, no one would propose that heavy use of glyphosate, or insert what the company actually does to earn money, will create healthier humans in more climate-resilient ecosystems, except those who have a financial stake in the conversation. The North Woods of Central Park offers a beautiful urban oasis and also a stark contrast to how the rest of the city functions. It prompts a question: why do we separate parks from the rest of our lives? And 5, the final point in this Climate Week briefing, if you need to use the Sustainable Development Goals, focus on 4.7. In many ways, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs as they're called, are an expression of the problem that got us here. But sometimes in a kind of corporate twist on Aikido, that Japanese principle that turns various movements that redirect an opponent's attack to create better momentum, we need to use the energy of what comes our way. I said more about this in a piece called The Meaning of Life is Not 42. It's 4.7. The key message there was, the SDGs are overly human-centric and have GDP growth baked in. These two fundamentally broken elements of our current industrial norms have contributed to the mess. However, Target 4.7 has potential if approached from the right context and given sufficient room to expand. And if we achieved it, we would negate the need to have any targets in the first place. If you do go to Central Park, you may pass by the zoo and the Glockenspiel. These are fun, even entertaining parts of the park. People love them. But I recommend you keep going to the North Woods if you can. Bonus round. If in doubt, you can always put the C-SPAM to work, the good old control, surrender, paralysis, analysis matrix, to which I include a link. It can help in many a bind, especially one that involves a lot of meetings, sitting in chairs, and wondering how to make progress on important things. The key message from that piece and that matrix: the more we try to control things, the worse we feel. Keep this matrix handy and ask yourself which dot represents the agenda of the meeting or event you are at. You'll see in that piece there's a 2x2 matrix full of dots. You might find it hovers eerily toward the bottom, usually a little to the right. I recommend picking a dot somewhere in the upper right quadrant, walking out of the building and asking a random local jaywalker somewhere near 1st and 51st how you get to that dot. If it were me, I would suggest it's located up in the North Woods of Central Park. By the way, as many of those meetings are taking place, millions of migratory birds are getting ready, as well as bats and other migrating species, to make the winged migration from north to south, many of whom will pass through, across, hopefully over, parts of New York City. Thousands will not make it, as they will crash into those buildings, even the LEED certified ones. For more provocations around sustainability, environmental, social, and governance, or ESG investing, strategy, reporting, disclosure, and how we can truly align business with a purpose that serves life, enables all life to thrive, I hope you'll check out more free content as well as some of the premium downloads at blorrainesmith.com. Have a great Climate Week, folks. Bye for now.